So Lula, we are doing these sort of discussions or mini interviews on occasion of your participation in the 10 Encounters show, currently on view at Olfactory Art Keller until November. And so I wanted to start just with a simple question, which is, who are you? What's your practice? Tell us a little bit about what you do.
Well, I work with smell, with different approaches to smell, right? And I mainly do it because it really provokes a lot of emotions and feelings in all of us. So I think I chose perfumery, or perfumery chose me, because of that, because I love talking about scenarios, feelings, humans interacting with each other, and which better way to do it than with scent. So yeah, I normally incorporate smells into different objects to bring a more like sensorial and somehow synesthetic experience. So yeah, I do like all the perfumery approach, and also the design and artistic, like visual part of it.
And you're based in Mexico City, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm based in Mexico City. Here have this studio, which is open to exploration with different artists or creatives that are willing to work with scent too.
Nice. Well, so tell us a little bit about your story that you chose to interpret and smell. It has to do with a nun and a viceroy. Can you give us just a little bit of an overview of what that's all about?
Well, this is the story about, so there's Sor Juana Inés de la Cruz, who is a very important character in Mexican history, because she was a nun, but not because she had religious devotion. But here we are talking about 17th century. So back then, the only path that a woman could take if she wanted to keep studying or just being involved with books and poetry, it was being a nun, because it was that or being a wife. And Sor Juana was a genius writer and poet. So she said, okay, so I'll become a nun. And that's why she entered to the convent, right? And in the other hand, we have this queen. Well, she's the vicereine, who came from Spain, because back then, here in Mexico, we had viceroys, right? Mm-hmm. So they came, the new couple. And this specific woman was very, very interesting because, well, obviously I've been doing a lot of research, but she was a non-classic type of queen. She was very, very involved with all what society, like the culture of the place she was coming, she was very into what was going on in Mexico. So, and also she was really smart, and she really enjoyed literature and poetry. So Sor Juana and María Luisa, that's the name of the queen, met, and they started this beautiful, well, at the beginning, like intellectual and platonic love, based on their mutual interests. And so the queen used to spend a lot of hours in the convent with Sor Juana, and that all evolved into more erotic relationship in between them, which actually in many of the poems from Sor Juana, you can read clearly these highly erotic poems, openly sexual, honestly, which are dedicated to Lysi. That's how she called Sor Juana, used to call María Luisa. And so yeah, that's the story. Basically, the queen became a patron of Sor Juana at a very early age. So all those 8 years that they spent here, she was like supported. And after, when they went back to Spain, also Lysi, or María Luisa, brought all the papers and all the poems and everything from Juana, and they published for the first time like a big book about her work, and after a second. So somehow, like the way we know about Sor Juana, or the impact it could cause in our society, it was highly encouraged by this woman, Maria Luisa.
So I wanted to know how you chose to interpret that relationship or that encounter in smell, because as you said, it had a major impact on society. And I know that Sor Juana is a really important figure in Mexican literature. So how do you tackle something like that with smell? You know, something so deep.
Well, something important. Sor Juana is in our 200 bill. Well, and also in the 500. So that's
she really
big.
matters. Yeah.
She really went in a big stage. So what did I do? Well, as you can imagine, there are many paths to approach this story, right? In my case, what I decided to do is to, well, first, like somehow realizing how these two worlds these two women live in were completely different, right? Like complete contrast, the convent and the palace, right? Like the most feast and glamour, and we're talking about the Baroque, so everything was over the top. And on the other side, it's like this convent, which it's the absolute opposite. So these two worlds were connected by this intimacy and this somehow refugee they found in between each other, right? So they created this beautiful bond and this friendship, love that could become into something probably more sexual if we think about it. So what I did was to first like create these two worlds, these two contrasted. So in the palace one, I created multiple accords of, for instance, old makeup. Baroque was a time of makeup and wigs and everything. So I went deep into which type of molecules included, that type of makeup, like trying to recreate that feeling. Also, the fabrics were very important. We are also in the Baroque, so the velvets, the brocades, and so giving to the smell this texture of thickness, this accord of velvet, and also kind of dusty. And I imagine these big curtains, right? Also, well, the wood, and the interiors of these palaces. So, well, that mainly in the palace side, but also in the convent one, I went into the walls of stone, that humidity. I also approached that, different accords. Incense, obviously, incense at mass, and dripping candles. We didn't have light, so it was everything lighted with candles. So that was an element constant in this scenario. Old books, also obviously I created this old book smell, a little bit sweet and also dusty. And well, like the most important, because okay, here we have these separate worlds, but which was the link in between them? So here's to me the most important part, or the most interesting process that I took, which was how do I wanted to create a smell of someone you want to keep smelling because you love, right? So it doesn't have to be sex smell, but it's also, like it's this in between, like just a real human skin or connection. So I went deep into this type of molecules research and trying to recreate that feeling, and somehow people when have smelled the final piece, that's something beautiful. Like they tell me, oh wow, it smells like intimate, like something intimate is happening in here, right? It's like cool, because That's the most important, no, that feeling. And also I wanted to add two other human elements. One was the nervous sweat, because I imagine them in this, in this cell talking for hours, but like with this nervous feeling that maybe they like each other and no. So I researched the different type of smells in sweat, and depending if you are scared or not, or if you are, it's a little bit different. So, well, I added a bit of that too. And also the third human element I wanted to add was, underneath everything, I created a vagina cord, no? I wanted this woman element in the rawest form to be present. So yeah, well, I just went and smelled a lot.
That's awesome.
Created and trying, I mean, this is true.
I
True
love it.
story.
That's awesome.
And well, yeah, also some technical research, right? But
Of course.
but yeah, so it's a cocktail which I want, at the end, if you smell it, I think it's less complex than it sounds like. It's more like a feeling, which is what I wanted, right? I didn't want to create a combo of everything, but to have, to me, when I designed it, I wanted it to be as if you were looking out of a window from the convent, and you first see all the, or smell in this case, all the more convent elements, the more incensey, more this, then more of the queen, and then starts getting stronger, the human element, which is to me the core of this story.
That's
Damn.
wonderful. Wow, it's so complex, So when you were working with scent in the context of fine art, like you did here, how does it differ from when you're working in the context of your more commercial practice? Do you approach it in a different way? Like what's the main difference for you as a creative person?
Yeah, well, in some things very similar. Honestly, my approach to what I do commercially speaking, is also very like storytelling. So I always start from what I want to say and which emotion I want to provoke, more than, oh, this smells nice, and then I'll try to find a story to match it, So to me, the process was kind of similar. Like, that's the path for me to work and find the right materials. Then it's easier to understand if this is working or not, right? You have a background of, what do I want to say? What do I want to convey? So from that point of view, it was kind of similar. It's true here, I could go much wilder with, I didn't need it to, I didn't want to convey a beautiful smell, right? That normally, obviously in a commercial way, that's what you normally want, right? And so here I could go wild and say, okay, vagina cord, here we are, and buying these crazy molecules, like isovaleric acid, that you just open it and it stinks the whole room, like literally for days. And it was like, wow. So it was very exciting to be able to discover all that and really apply it. And yeah, and which is funny is that at the end, people who have smelled the final Sor Juana, they said, wow, I would love to wear it because it's so attractive. It smells so, so sexy somehow, but not in the typical way of, I smell sexy, right? In a more animal way. So it's like, wow, maybe the commercial should be more, it should have a more artistic approach and not just thinking about what smells good, because after, we're all animals. So we like all these, these molecules. But yeah, that would be mainly the biggest difference.
Yeah, a few people have said similar, and then also things like IFRA compliance and, yeah, being less of an issue. Well, Lula, I really thank you for taking the time. I'm sorry our internet connection was a little wonky, but it doesn't matter because you still came through loud and clear. And yeah, it's been a pleasure working with you on this show.
No, thank you for inviting me. It was beautiful, really.
Yeah.
And thank you for creating this type of projects. Really, the world needs them.